and nothing to cling from. All of a sudden, I begin to see myself at age 3, and I am in the inside patio of the house where I was born in my hometown. I was on a tricycle with a stick in my hand, going through the patio, hitting the plants and the flowers. And I could hear a maid telling me not to do it. I was so petrified because I couldn't understand how could it be possible at age 47 to relive my infancy perfectly. I was able to smell the flowers, to feel the stick in my hand, the tricycle that I was riding, the wind, but I was experiencing it with my mind and my conscience of 47. So this is so mysterious. The first instinct I had was to run away from the cave, but I knew that if I dared to do that, I'd be shot immediately by the rebels because they will think I'm escaping. So I knew I couldn't afford it. I had to stay put in there and go through this. And I continue going through this. I was facing my life around 11 or 12 years of age because gradually I was going through all my life. And then I began to feel the most amazing pain. And the pain was so deep, undescribably deep. And it wasn't physical, it was a spiritual pain. It was the pain of my sins. And you're talking to a man that didn't believe in sin. I used to make fun of it. My mother used to call me in California and say, "Son, I'm worried about you. What if you die living the life you live in? You're going to go to hell. I'm very concerned." And I used to make fun of her and say, "Mom, who taught you that? Those are stories made up by people to control people with religions. Sin doesn't exist," and I will give her all the philosophies I was into. My poor mother was always praying for me, and I never listened to her. By the time I was kidnapped, she had been dead for a year already. So there I was, going through the pain of my sins. And I was 47 years old. Imagine if I was feeling pain of my sins at 11 or 12 years of age, you probably imagine the rest. I wasn't only going through my sins, I was also going through the goodness in my life. But what was good in my life was flowing through painlessly. But what was wrong was there like frozen, and it wasn't moving. And no matter what I would do, it wouldn't go away. I had to suffer it. I had to go through it. And it was like eternal. Every aspect that was wrong in my life was like eternal. That's what I say, that there's no way I could ever compare that experience with our human time, because it seems like I went through an eternal experience, a never-ending one. I think I went through my whole life during that illumination of conscience. As a matter of fact, when I began to experience my infancy, the bats that were in the cave began to fly around, and they gave me a balance, because I was aware that I was in the cave by the action of the bats, and at the same time I was going through that experience. It's very mysterious how the Lord made it happen, because later on I find out that all of this was a plan of God. But how mysterious could He be? I mean, it's amazing how He did that. Anyways, the next thing that happened is that I don't know how to explain this, and it will be impossible. Only God knows. I don't know if I went through this with my body or in my soul or how, but I did. And you will see for yourself whatever the Holy Spirit can show you as to how it takes place. But the fact is that I appeared face down against the grass on top of a pretty high mountain. And when I looked around, I could see another mountain even higher. And on top of that mountain, I could perfectly see the most beautiful city of light. Something so precious. I was able to understand everything about it, though I will never be able to put it in words. The words will never explain it, ever. But I was going through that. I could see the streets, I could see everything in that city, and one thing I knew for sure is that I was supposed to have been there, but I didn't make it. That I knew right away. But between the mountain where I appeared and the mountain where that city of light was, There was an abyss separating them. They were not connected. I knew I couldn't make it to the other side. So I looked around again, and I could see my body in the cave where I was kidnapped. And this is where the mystery begins to be deeper. I don't know how I was living this, if I was outside that body or with the body, but I could see the body. I was on the mountain. This is very difficult, not possible to explain. So at that moment, I knew that something really big happened when I saw the body. And I was in a perfect state of joy, peace, and freedom. I heard the voice of the Lord speak to me. And his voice was so big, so gigantic, that it was coming from everywhere in the universe. It seems like everything was speaking to me with his voice. The grass itself, it was coming from inside me, and it was burning me. I couldn't stand it. The voice was so filled with love and compassion and mercy and forgiveness, and I was not able to bear it. And I realized something really sad. All of my life, as I told you in the beginning, I thought I was a great guy because of the things I did that were supposed to be good. And then I realized that I never loved anyone, and I lived all my life for me, only for me. Everything I ever did was to glorify myself, everything. When I did all this great charity work, I was doing it because I felt better, because I felt better than others. I was glorifying myself. So I never really ever loved anyone truly. So I didn't have a single drop of the love of God. And that's why when the Lord spoke to me, it was burning me. I couldn't bear it. It was too much. I couldn't handle it. All I wanted to do was to run away. So I rejected the Lord. And I know it's difficult to understand and even to believe that one could reject God at the end of this life. But I did. So once I stopped listening to his voice, when he's silent, I found myself in a bottomless abyss, floating on top of it. And yesterday I described to you how it was, briefly. So there's where I end up, that experience of hell. Even though I, all my life, denied it for 33 years and argued with everyone, using all kinds of ideologies and philosophies, fighting, saying hell doesn't exist. And I was so engaged with all these pagan philosophies and all these views of life without hell. And there I was experiencing hell. And today, I go around telling people that I testify with my life that hell does exist. And not because I read it in a book, and not because any human being taught me that. Because when they did, and when I read it, I didn't believe it. As a matter of fact, I made fun of it, and I thought it was a joke. But today, I can tell you with my life that hell does exist, because I have been there. And this is not easy to say, because we live in such a material world that how could you ever conceive that? How could you ever? It's only grace. It's only faith. You either believe it or you don't. I recommend you to do. I recommend you to believe it, because it is very vital in your daily life to understand that there are only two territories: the territory of God and the territory of Satan. There's nothing in the middle. So you better make up your mind. And if you make up your mind, walk on the light, and walk on the light all the time. There is no other way. It's like when you decide to be honest. You don't decide to be honest on Monday, you know. You decide to be honest all the time. It's when you decide to love someone. You don't decide to love someone only on Tuesdays. You decide to love someone all the time. So when you decide for God all the time. And that is the way it works. It doesn't work any other way. You see, a marriage is a marriage when there is love. And the love has to be there all the time.